Hi there, my name is Davey Cretin. Welcome to Cretin Classics. Unfortunately, this is one of those kind of videos that I don't like doing, but I feel I should honor these three men who have passed away recently in the past few days, all in the rock and roll field. So I'm going to be talking about Eric Carmen, and then Karl Wallinger, and lastly, T.M. Stevens. So Eric Carmen passed away recently at 74. We're not sure exactly what day he died or what he passed from. That information hasn't been released by his family. But Eric Carmen was a member. Grew up in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, and that's where he formed the band Raspberries. And they, you might say, were the first power pop band, unless you want to go back to the Beatles and start there. But in the field, the genre, subgenre of power pop, Raspberries were a big deal back in the day. And they made four studio records from in the early 70s, and then they broke up in 1975. And their biggest hits were Go All the Way, which was number 5 on the US Billboard singles charts. Let's Pretend, which reached number 35. I Want to Be With You, which reached number 16, so it was a top 20 hit. Overnight Sensation, in parentheses, hit record, that reached number 18. And Tonight was also a big song, even though it only reached number 69. So the Raspberries had a bunch of hits. They were sort of a cult band. And in 1975, when the band broke up, Eric Carmen struck out on his own. And right out of the box in 1975, he had a huge hit that reached number 2 on the Billboard charts called All by Myself. Now, it was a number 2 single in a very edited form. The full length version from the album is about 7 minutes long, a little over 7 minutes. And the hit single was under 4 minutes. Then there's a 5 minute version, and it's a piano ballad, but it just builds to this great chorus and this powerful lift with these drums that come in. It's a great song based on a Rachmaninoff classical piece. So All by Myself. And as a little kid, I loved that song in 1975. I couldn't get enough of that song, even though I didn't know the full version until years later. His other solo hits, Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, reached number 11. She Did It, number 23, just outside of the top 20. A song that most people know from the 80s because it was on the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, which was a huge seller. I was working in a record store at the time, and for years that just kept selling on CD, on cassette, on vinyl, always a big seller. Ladies loved that movie. They loved Eric Carmen's song from that movie. The number 4 song on the Billboard chart, Hungry Eyes. So Hungry Eyes was a huge comeback for him. And then another song, Make Me Lose Control, reached number 3. So unfortunately, he never had a number 1 song, but he had a number 2, a number 3, and a number 4 song on the Billboard charts. Go figure. So Eric Carmen, he was a multi-instrumentalist, played guitar, keyboard, singer-songwriter, producer. He could do it all. Very talented guy. The odd thing is that for all his popularity, he only recorded 10 studio albums, 4 with the Raspberries and 6 on his own. There have been numerous compilations. He contributed songs here and there. But for a guy who was around for nearly 50 years in the industry, his output isn't that big. 10 albums over 50 years. Not that big an output. He also toured with Ringo Starr, Ringo Starr's all-star band, so I wanted to add that. The next person who unfortunately passed away recently, Karl Wallinger. If I neglected to say it, Eric Carmen was 74. Karl Wallinger was 66. Now, Karl Wallinger was sort of more known maybe in the alternative rock scene, the alt rock college scene. In the early 80s, from 83 to 85, he was a member of the Waterboys, which was Mike Scott's band. And Karl Wallinger was just a member, and then he struck out on his own 1986, and he formed his own band, World Party. Now, Karl Wallinger is a Welsh musician. He was born in Wales, so he is from the other side of the pond. So the chartings I'm going to say for the World Party songs are based on the British chart, the British singles chart. So from 1986 until he passed, World Party was his band, and he was the leader of the band. So it was his vision. And in 2001, unfortunately, he suffered a brain aneurysm in early February of 2001. So he was out of commission. He was away from music until he started touring again and making music in 2006. So for 5 years, he was not involved in the thing he loved, music. And to survive a brain aneurysm, maybe some people say he was living on borrowed time, but to survive over 20 years after a brain aneurysm, it's pretty good. And he still continued with the World Party. They made another record, they toured. So he was a prolific guy, and he'll be much missed, just like Eric Carmen. Now, the big songs that I particularly love from World Party are Ship of Fools, great song, reached number 42 on the British charts. Put the Message in the Box, reached number 39 on the British charts. Way Down Now, really good rock song, reached number 66 in the UK. And Is It Like Today, with a question mark. Is It Like Today? Really good song that reached number 19, so it was a top 20 single for Karl and World Party. And they were a good alt rock band. They had a different slant on things. They made about half a dozen records throughout their career. And the only lasting effect that Mr. Wallinger suffered after his brain aneurysm is he had peripheral vision loss on the right side of both his eyes. So to survive a brain aneurysm and just have that as the long-lasting effect is a lucky man and a great musician, and he'll be missed by his family and friends worldwide, much like Eric Carmen. And the last gentleman I'm going to talk about, bass player from New York, born and bred right here in New York, T.M. Stevens. And he had a wild looking appearance. He had the long dreadlocks hair, and he was very active on stage. He moved around and jumped around a lot. And he had a look where you could just say, that guy's a musician. That guy's a rock star. T.M. Stevens. TM stood for Thomas Michael. He was a big touring bass player and a session bass player. One of his big breaks, he was on the Pretenders album, Get Close, their fourth album from 1986, and he played on about half the record. And the biggest song that everyone probably knows that he played on, Don't Get Me Wrong. That was one of the three big hits from the record, the biggest hit from the record. And he also toured and did a lot of sessions with a lot of people. Billy Squier, James Brown, Billy Joel, Taylor Dane, Cyndi Lauper, Joe Cocker, I also have written down, Tina Turner, Steve Salas's Color Code. Now, I saw Steve Salas in the early 90s open up for Joe Satriani. I can't remember if T.M. Stevens was the bassist. But I did see Steve Salas. Maybe I saw T.M. Stevens. I've seen so many shows over the years, I can't remember every detail of every show, unfortunately. A while ago, one of his friends and fellow musicians announced that T.M. Stevens had advanced dementia, and sadly, he was living in a nursing home. Now, I know all about dementia because my father had it, and it's a very, very hard disease to see someone go through. And I see other people with dementia at my job sometimes, and it's very sad when you just lose your memory and you just become sort of a different person. It's a very sad situation that T.M. Stevens died. I don't know what he died of exactly, but living with dementia is not a good thing, and it's very sad. So I want to honor, if I didn't mention it, T.M. Stevens lived to the age of 72. So I just made this video to honor T.M. Stevens, who's a very cult type musician, and Eric Carmen, who a lot of people knew, and of course Karl Wallinger from the alt rock, if you want to call them that band, World Party. So rest in peace, gentlemen, and your fans and your family appreciate all the music you put out there in the world. You guys did great. You did a good thing. So rest in peace. I'm Davey Cretin from Cretin Classics. Thank you for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.